Hey, Laurel.
Hey, Jessa.
Who's our guest today?
We have Tom with LaunchBoom. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Hello, everybody.
Hi, thank you
And
for joining.
and Jessa, how are we connected to Tom?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so if anyone has spoken with me in probably the last 6 months, I think every conversation I start off, well, this company LaunchBoom, and I actually don't really talk about it on here, which is a whole other thing, but I have a product I'm launching and I want to do crowdfunding. And from day one, when I talked about crowdfunding, everyone said, you need to talk to LaunchBoom because LaunchBoom's an agency that specializes in crowdfunding campaigns for consumer products. And at least that's how I was introduced. I'm sure there's a better pitch, but and LaunchBoom has this just like wealth of knowledge on anything crowdfunding. So blah, blah, blah. I sign up for LaunchBoom to get updates, and they have this academy program, which is basically like, here's how you do it. You want to do crowdfunding, here's the blueprint. We'll help you along the way and answer some questions. But and so instead of doing their full consulting program, I do this kind of DIY program, as I call it. And Tom, who is co-founder and CMO of LaunchBoom, is leading the weekly office hours calls and kind of the point contact as far as I'm concerned in running this. And I could go on for another probably 30 minutes, but that would defeat the point of this, I guess. So that's how I know Tom, is through LaunchBoom and crowdfunding. And if you know anything about crowdfunding, I found out there's this whole like fan base of like Tom Spines. And he's like a celebrity. Everyone's like, you're Tom from Tom Spines? And I'm like, oh, like, how'd I know? And I would have,
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I think that's a little too much credit. LaunchBoom stuff I'll take. But
well, so it's funny because, like I said, like in my world with the podcasting, I don't talk about shirtsana.com. Go sign up.
It's amazing. Definitely. It's truly an incredible product. You've done something really special. So.
Thank you. And so it's funny because on the other side, when we talk to Tom during these office hours and he's giving people advice on their crowdfunding and product launches and marketing and just literally everything as it relates to business, you have these little nuggets that you kind of drop really quickly about, your life outside of these office hours. And I feel like everyone is like, wait, what? And you're like, another time. So I'm super, super excited for you to join the podcast because I'm like, okay, we have about an hour to hear your life story.
Uh-oh.
No pressure, but
tell us all the things.
Yeah, we're here to be entertained.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm happy to start there, and we can again, if you've got questions along the way and anything else that comes up, happy to kind of go through it, and I'll tell the story of Tom.
Yeah. So. Well, and before I get into that, I want to say too, because with our podcast, like we have listeners who listen to us, and I know you have people who follow you, and so we wanted you to be on this podcast because we do connecting knowledge and resources to live a more conscious form of capitalism. And part of that is sharing knowledge. Like there's enough to go around. And I think there is a more traditional fear-based approach that a lot of people are used to and used to holding their cards close to their chest. And my experience with LaunchBoom is like, you guys say, here it is. And I know your co-founder literally wrote a book on like crowdfunding. It's like, here, you can do it. And you're not afraid of it. And so you guys embrace sharing knowledge and resources. And okay, I'm done. I will let you talk.
Well,
I might have a cup of coffee. I'm a 1 cup of coffee gal. So sorry about that.
No, all good. Yeah, no, I could definitely dig into that as well. Yeah, because it's crazy. Like Crowdfunded, the book by Mark Pacoda is by far probably one of the most detailed books I've ever read. It's crazy how much we give away, and again, we believe that the more we give away, the more that we're going to get back. And I can go into my story, and then we'll dig into kind of like that concept of. Of course, it's called a lot of different things. It's abundance mindset. It's like not being fearful. It's courage. It's, giving more than you receive, like all the above. And so I'm excited to talk. I'll talk about that and story time. So I guess I should start with like once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away. There was a little Tom. Yeah, so I guess I'll start there. So was it and is a huge Star Wars fan. So we'll start with that. That's entire childhood done. Next section, next chapter.
Efficiency, I love it.
I originally started so I grew up around the film industry. So I was actually a child actor. I'm still technically in the Screen Actors Guild. I was on like McDonald's commercials and Singular Wireless commercials. If people still know what that is. So did that. So it was always kind of like, behind the camera. I did a lot of theater in high school and college, and ton of theater. But the whole time I always thought, okay, well, this is fun, but I need a real job. And I was also I looked up to my mom a lot. She was a pre-med theater major. So she was a theater major in college who ultimately became a doctor. She's a psychiatrist. And so
Awesome.
yeah, so crazy kind of stuff. My dad is a psychologist, and so I definitely learned a lot from them. Everything from how the mind works to Freudian theory, everything in between, and psychoanalysis. And so that stuff really fascinated me. And so that was kind of like my plan, was to like go like follow in my mom's footsteps, be a theater major, so I get like all the soft skills, because there's so many doctors out there that suck with people, but it is a people, like your job is people. So do the theater and all of that, and then translate that into being a doctor, going to medical school and all of that stuff.
And sorry to cut you off, but I just think it's so awesome that you said you wanted to follow in your mom's footsteps, because as a female, found a business, and we talked to a lot of women founders, and it's just, I literally don't think I've ever heard a man say he wanted to follow in his mom's footsteps. That's not to say it doesn't happen, but just shout out to your mom. That's awesome. And to you. I love it. So
yeah,
continue.
no, absolutely. Yeah. Because again, very, very super cool. She's like a double PhD. So she's like a MD PhD. So doctor, it's crazy. And so that was kind of like my mission. That was where I was going. In college, so went to UCSD, plan again, medical school. So I was taking like organic chemistry while also in theater classes, because I was a theater major in college, graduated with a theater major, basically have an undeclared double major in like theater, chemistry, and psychology. And so
No big deal.
no, a lot of crazy stuff. The two of them are undeclared though. The only one that's actually real, because I took all the classes, all the prereqs, was theater. And while I was in college, a couple of different things happened. So one is I read the book Linchpin by Seth Godin. Really helped me kind of like almost like take ownership of like my path and my journey, right? Versus kind of like, school happening to me versus like me happening to school, right? Like going to, go basically realizing that I can like kind of almost like write my own path, be more intentional with the choices that I'm making, to the point where I was literally going to my professors and I was like, no, this is going to be my final for this class because it better meshes with what I'm doing outside of school. And so that kind of like taking that ownership, like I'm paying you to put me through college. Like I'm like, you don't get to tell me what to do. I'm paying, like this is a service you are providing, not the other way around, which I feel like so many students like think like school's happening to me, right? Versus like, no, like I'm literally paying to be here. So like, why am I complaining about going? I'm paying for this. This is crazy. So that's like a whole tangent, and education system's broken, and that's another webinar. But through this process, I was also working in the film industry through my again, the acting stuff turned into me wanting to see what it was like behind. Like I was not really big into the acting side, more wanted to know kind of like what was going on behind the scenes. I was fascinated with the idea of directing, creating these worlds. And the thing that I always have loved and has been close to me is solving problems. My like mission statement, I think in Latin, it's a Cisco et uno, which is probably terrible Latin, which is solve problems together. And so that's been kind of like my mission statement for ever, as long as I can remember. And so it's all about solving problems. And for me, I wanted to, so I was, pre-med, I was working in ERs, and then also working as like a PA in Hollywood and working behind the scenes there. And as like a project manager. And so while also starting like a film and television station on campus, and so a bunch of stuff going on, but basically realized that like, okay, I want to have an impact on the world. And if I could get everybody in this world to like take a pill to like solve a problem, loneliness, whatever whatever that pill is, right? If I can like get everybody to take this pill that solves that big problem, how would I do that? And I realized that medicine just wasn't it. medicine is a one-to-one kind of experience. There isn't that scale. I was working in an ER at the time, and was like literally every doctor was like hating their lives and telling me not to do this. They're like, do not go. My mentor was basically telling me like, you should don't do this. Like, if you want to like have impact and you want to actually like change lives, like medicine's awesome. People, their doctors are very needed, right? Like, I know my mom's a doctor, dad's a doctor, like absolutely. And so, but of course, wanting to have that more scaled impact, realized that filmmaking and film was a much better way to do that. You can think like, okay, well, how has like film impacted our story? I mean, the thing that fun book Sapiens, yeah, if you've read it, right, is all about like the thing that makes humans special is our ability to like tell, share, create stories, and that create that like shared experience, which really truly defines kind of like who we are and where we're going in the world, right? And we're on a podcast right now. That's what this is. Like, this is we're weaving some stories here, and so story weavers. And so
Like oracle, like oral tradition, oral history, being the narrator of our world is our reality.
Exactly.
That's our reality that we create.
Exactly. And it can have like the biggest impact. I mean, even, stories, films, things like that, inspiring medicine, inspiring like major world change and things like that. And so realizing that, okay, this is the path that I actually want to be on. And so I want to do that. And then I took a course in college from, his name is Dr. Samadasandran. And it was a course called Consumer-Based Brand Equity. And so Jess is probably very familiar with what that is. And that completely changed like everything. It combined like I realized was my love of psychology, my love of like filmmaking, and of course the doctor stuff, like having an impact and like healing people or, teaching or something in some way, that knowledge base with, everything else. And that was marketing. And so I basically crashed this upper division course that I wasn't even supposed to be at, and was fascinated by brands and was fascinated by the impact that brands have in our lives. Like, I truly believe that we live in an age of romantic consumerism where like the things that we have around us and the things that we own like are stories in and of themselves, whether it's like a watch or our what kind of phone do we have, right? They help us better identify ourselves and help us solve problems and help us become, like, period, right?
I was
And
gonna
so
say
period, right? They help us become period. Yeah. So which is really fascinating and really interesting, and I loved it. And so realized that, okay, so went from wanting to be a doctor to wanting to make films to wanting to create brands. And so right out of college, and kind of while in college, created an agency called The Label Creative. I'm sure the website's somewhere. See like little me running around making videos and websites and stuff along with my partners. I originally started as just like filmmaking. So because that's what my specialty was. I was creating films for brands and stuff throughout San Diego. If anyone's familiar with Drew Canoli or Organifi, I was like Drew's like video guy back in the day. So
much Organifi in my house. It's kind of ridiculous.
There you go. If you like
I have the green in my teeth right now.
Yeah. Well, if you want to see green, go back. You'll see like me in videos green all over my face, like all of that stuff. So really got my start with Drew, making, like, basically running all of his videos, his Saturday strategies, all of that fun stuff before Organifi was even a glimmer in him and Jamel's eyes. So and so that's kind of like where I got my start in that. And then I ended up doing an internship at an agency, met my business partners, Mark and Mike, and that's where we started Label Creative and really took Label Creative to the next level, which was kind of like going back to, we basically had the option, we're like, okay, well, we could become employed by this agency, or we can, go start our own and serve all of my video clients, websites and strategic brand equity, consultation, and all that other fun stuff. And so that's what we did. It was awesome. Had some amazing clients like Red Bull, Kensington, whole bunch, which was incredible. And then from there, a friend of mine, actually, his name's Kevin Liang, came to me from we're in college together. We're in like an entrepreneur group together, and I had been trying to convince him. He made these like $60,000 beautiful aquariums, like $80,000, $100,000, like incredible freshwater and I think saltwater aquariums, and they were like these like masterpieces. But then he was also really fascinated about creating these like sustainable, like he'd have like these, it was kind of like chunky, it'd be like in the bottom it'd have tilapia, and it'd like grow it'd grow tomatoes out of the top of it, out of these like containers. And he was like shilling fish out of his like girlfriend, now wife's, closets, and all that. So it was doing all sorts of cool, crazy things. But anyways, so he came to me and he's like, "Hey, Tom, remember that idea that I talked about back in college that we talked about together? Well, because I was convinced, I was trying to tell him to like take all of that stuff and like make it small, make it something that you can fit on your desk. Or how cool would it be is if you had a refrigerator that you could literally open up and you'd like fresh plants on top, and at the bottom you've got like fresh fish that are like helping feed the plants." And so taking his like bigger ideas and kind of condensing it down more for the consumer space. And he's basically like, "I did it. That thing that we talked about, I did it, and would love your support launching a crowdfunding campaign. Have you ever heard of Kickstarter?" And at the time I hadn't. This was like in 2012, didn't know what Kickstarter was. We had like a blog post from Tim Ferriss, was like pretty much all we had in terms of our LaunchBoom Academy at the time. And decided to take the leap, helped him with his kind of like branding, his positioning, made the video. If you go back, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it was my you can hear my voice as the VO for the video for that campaign, still out there. We raised like $80,000 on the front end, upsold a bunch of fish stuff, doubling that on the back end. That was our first crowdfunding campaign ever. It was awesome. We loved it. It was like a huge breath of fresh air going from the RFP agency model, where you're like, really struggling to even get deals. And even if you did get a really great deal, you make this awesome video, but like you wouldn't really control where it goes. But the thing about crowdfunding is we just love the ability to, see that impact, literally go from like $0 to like $80,000 in, 60, 90 days. It's crazy. And then, from like continue that from there. So we launched a second campaign for him, raised $375,000, doubled that on the back end, upselling really cool fish stuff. And that was kind of like the beginning of, LaunchBoom. One of his advisors, his name's Will Ford, came to, we had breakfast together, and he was like, "Hey, Tom, I think you guys are sitting on a gold mine here. Why don't you guys drop all the other agency stuff? Let's work together and blow this up." And because there's a huge need in this space for pre-campaign. A lot of people are just launching their campaigns and kind of like struggling from there. But to have a really successful campaign, we really realized you have to like do that pre-work. And there wasn't really anybody out there that was doing it. Everybody in the space at the time were basically just doing live advertising and things like that. So we saw a need, and we went after it. And now I can confidently say we're the #1 pre-launch crowdfunding agency in the world. We touch more campaigns, support more creators, not just through our agency now, which is really exciting. This is where we're getting to the other stuff, but through our content. That's the thing that's so exciting is our mission in the next 3 years is to help raise $1 billion for entrepreneurs. And I'll talk about why that's so important right now in a second. But we're doing that not just, again, with our agency model, not even just with LaunchBoom Academy, but with all of the free stuff that we're giving away every single day, doing everything that we can to help these entrepreneurs. And so,
why? Like we talked about it earlier about this abundance mindset and there's enough to go around. Why free stuff? Like, what was it within you and your co-founders that were like, you know what, I'm not going to charge an arm and a leg for all of these things because I believe it should be open source wisdom or a contribution to the collective consciousness? Why, like, what was that shift in mind? And was it difficult to make that decision?
It's funny. It really wasn't difficult. I mean, one of the things that's really cool, and I think the reason, again, we've been in business since 2012, and literally no problems with our founders. I was originally the CEO of the company. I ended up stepping down to become the CMO, to let Mark step up into into that CEO spot. Like things like that usually like break companies, right? Like usually you get like all sorts of like weird fights and ego and all that other stuff. But really at the end of the day, I love my partners and they're awesome. They're incredible. And we really like when I say we've had zero problems over the years, like I mean that. And that's because we're all on the same page when it comes to our values and our vision, and that greater vision and working together, right? That mission statement of let's solve problems together means more to us than, our egos and all the other, greed and stuff that the world kind of like puts on you. And so
what are your values specifically?
That's a great question. I've got a fantastic PowerPoint presentation that has a bunch of amazing graphics if you'd like me to pull them on the screen. But core values are family, journey before destination, which again, one of my favorite quotes of all time, life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. It's from a fiction book. I love reading fiction. Sanderson, you're the man if you're watching. So I hope, yeah, right. Or listening, depending on how you're consuming this amazing content. And so stay hungry is another one that's really important to us, and asking questions or staying curious. And then, last but definitely not least is own it. And so again, taking that massive ownership is just so important. And so those are our core values. We've added kind of like over the years, things have kind of like shifted and things like that. Like feedback is really important to us right now. That's something that, and having a good relationship, and that vulnerability is something that's also always kind of been there. But those are LaunchBoom's core values. Those are my core values, partners' core values, all of that. And so,
yeah, like Laurel and I, so with our consulting business, and I'm saying this because I talked to you about Shirt Sauna, is that's what we start off with when we meet with our clients. Is the first thing is core values. And I feel like traditionally in the business world and strategic planning meetings, everyone's like, okay, revenue, goals, numbers, KPIs. And if you don't get aligned on your values and your why, your purpose, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. It might matter for a few months, it might matter for a year, but over time, it's not sustainable. And so it might seem like it's something you can put off, you can do later, but it will catch up with you. And it really makes things easier from the beginning if you sit down and define this. And Laurel and I did that with our business. I did it with Shirt Sauna. And it seemed, for example, with Shirt Sauna, like being a consumer product, it seemed silly to sit down and do it by myself. But I just did it, and it made everything a lot easier down the road when I started needing to do content, because I worked through this plan. And I think it's, as you're talking about the founders being on the same page, Laurel was in Shirt Sauna, like we were in it, and another partner. And Laurel and I had a talk of, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, where she's just like, you know what, this isn't my goal anymore. Like I have different goals. I support you. You go do your thing. And it was like a 30-minute conversation, and we're just like, yeah, we see it, we're in alignment. And it was really simple and easy. And part of like a peer mentorship group we're with some other business owners, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I can't believe you guys are still on good terms. And it's like, yeah, because we know what each of us want and why we want it. And it's not personal. She's not like, I want you to fail, or I'm kicking you out, or anything like that. It's just like, this doesn't align with where we're going right now. And that's okay.
To be fair, I did get my acting debut in the Shirt Sauna video, so that was enough. And
awesome. There we go.
Almost got cut, which she doesn't know. It was very close to getting cut.
I was like, why am I not tagged in this video? Did they cut me? And then I fast forwarded
to tell you that we almost cut it, because if you look closely, that it doesn't. Whatever, the storyline doesn't match. If anyone's listening and you care to actually look at it, there's like a little disconnect where we're like, ooh, but I was like, oh, I can't tell her. But anyway, I think that, and another thing too you mentioned is that you said, these are my values and these are LaunchBoom's values. And we'd had some people early on tell us like, oh, you're building a company, your values don't need to align with the company. And yeah, we're like, and we thought about it and we kept coming back, we're like, wait, especially for a service-based business, if it's product, I think it's different, but a service, it's like, how do you, like, you're selling yourself and your approach and your expertise. And so I think that, it's really hard to try to separate the self from the business. And why should you?
Yeah. And I mean, and that's the thing too, is also I've heard a lot like, oh, you shouldn't go into business with your friends, but like they all work at LaunchBoom. I mean, or did or do. So, I mean,
What
yeah.
Laura and I do, we're like, our whole ethos is like, we want to work with people we like. Like, I want to work with my friends. My whole everything in business is like people who are my friends at some point. They either are already my friends or they are going to become my friend, and I'm going to pay them to be my friend someday when I make
Yeah.
the money.
Yeah,
But
there you go.
yeah,
That was the whole reason. That's why I started business too. It's just so they had to be my friends now. So
yeah, exactly.
like Michael Scott, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and it's fun, and I think there's so much. I don't know. I'm just thinking like when I came up in like, my degree in business and early in my career, when people are it's just numbers, growth, and that's all it was about. And it's all, at some point, the money doesn't matter. And at some point, like you can only sell your soul for so much. And so I'm wondering too, like, I guess, did you guys ever have any instances where you were giving away stuff and I say giving away, like you were maybe giving away some of your knowledge, or you lost a potential client to a competitor, or they did it on their own and you're like, oh man, like we really like, missed out on that or whatever. Like, did you ever have anything where you look back and like questioned your approach to business?
I mean, not really. I mean, it's so funny. Like TestBoom started at like 5K with ad spend and is now like 15K with ad spend. So, I mean, like right when we started, again, it's always like it's always a process and looking at like, wow, like we're adding a ton of value here and we're actually losing money on this because we're having to pay our team. And this is crazy. So we need to increase the prices because this is not sustainable. But no, I mean, in terms of like major business choices and things like that, like we make mistakes with hiring sometimes. We make mistakes here and there, deciding to follow kind of like chase a shiny object. There was like 6 months where we thought we were going to add Amazon to our core services. Like that was a mistake. And all of that, but like really again relying on like solving problems together, coming together as a team, like falling back on kind of like our core values, and not like, again, I talk about like these like worldly ideals, right? Like greed and all these numbers and all of that stuff is they're there to kind of like throw you off track, keep you like off the path. And so as long as you can kind of like stay focused, get back to like the core, the heart of everything, that's it's going to help you stay aligned and keep on track.
Yeah. Or sorry, I just have like a quick thing. You're saying something, and Laura and I like love the Daily Stoic, and there was one a few days ago that was saying, you think, it's talking about like the journey before the destination, and it's saying, okay, I'll be happy when I get this house, when I get this job, when I get this partner, and it's like it's all dependent upon something, and saying don't wait for this thing to happen to be happy, like be happy along the journey for what you're looking for. So
journey before destination. It's so
it's probably February 15th entry. I'm a few days behind on
that. Yeah, that's I mean, that's what's like so important, right? Is like throughout the process too. I mean, there were times where I had offers to hey, come work for me. I'll give you $250,000 a year in a Tesla, right? And I'm making like $20,000 a year with a startup, and I'm trying to figure out how to like feed every member of my team. And of course, that seems like who wouldn't take $250,000 a year in a Tesla, right? And like abandon this team that believed in me, and believed in this vision, and was like, hell no, like absolutely not. And staying true to the team, staying true to the vision, and all of that stuff, and slogging it out together.
I appreciate that commentary, because I think that this is a game and those are little tests, and you passed because you're enjoying the ride. You're enjoying the game. You're playing the game. You're co-creating your reality in your life. And I think that sometimes people can look at that and be like, God, they must be a control freak. They got to control everything. But if you come from an abundance mindset and a solutions thinking mindset, I mean, those are first of the 7 tenets of permaculture, is solutions thinking and abundance thinking. And when you think about permaculture, that's all. Like, it's just all. And all is here, all is happening now, all is your reality and that you're creating. And I wanted that to resonate with people that are listening or watching, because if you're in a business or a role in a business and it doesn't feel like you're co-creating a beautiful life, guess what? You got the chance to change it. You don't need the 250K in a Tesla. That's not the end goal, right? The money, like accumulating gold coins, isn't the point of the game. Like the game is about happiness, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Absolutely. 10 out of 10. And that's so funny too, because like that's always been something that, even with my wife, right? It's like it's the question of like, okay, cool, well, what are you doing or what am I doing, right? And if both of us aren't making 7 figures in happiness, like we're doing the wrong job. Like it doesn't matter how much money we're making, it's like we're both focused on like 7 figures of happiness. And that's what's like super important. And that's the other thing too, is like when it comes to like what is happiness and all of that stuff, you get into like like love really at the end of the day. It's like you love what you do, and like do people like, and that's now we can get down to like a whole deeper a deeper concept of like what is love, right? Because you get this whole like like getting into opinions now, super toxic like self-love kind of like concept, right? Which is like, oh, I need to like look out for me, I need to like take care, like there is like a concept around like it is, that is important, but like I very much from I come from a like, again, very like Christian background about like love is like suffering in a lot of ways, and there is that like joy there, and of course that lines up well with Daily Stoic for sure, and all those other things. And so it's the like really, again, it's loving their journey, right? It's like going back to my story is I was working in an ER that was like in a really upscale, nice neighborhood, as many drinks and snacks as I wanted, spent a lot of time playing solitaire on their computers, just chilling while the ER was completely empty, got hectic and definitely did a lot of work, versus being a PA in Hollywood, running around, like doing the like most terrible jobs ever, having to deal with like somebody who brought a gun to set, having to deal with like crazy actresses, having to deal with like, being like guarding a bunch of actors and actresses in the middle of like on Skid Row at like 2 a.m. and getting like very little sleep. And it comes down to like again, like love. It's like, I love that. Like that was awesome, being able to like be a part of this like greater vision that was, it had a really powerful message that was going to be able to get out there to the world. So
what is love?
That's a fantastic question. It's definitely a journey that I've in my own life have been like going for. And I don't know if I don't know if you guys are up for like really truly digging into that. I love 1 Corinthians. Like, yep. Pull that up. Love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, does not boast, is not proud, does not dishonor others, is not self-seeking, is not easily angered, keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And then now hopefully get into like some spirituality stuff here, is our religion too is like, love is God. That's John. And I think that relationship with the Lord, or whatever higher power you subscribe to, and all of that is I think is really, really important and powerful.
Yeah, I agree. And of course we absolutely love to get into the mushy gushies. Big fan. And it's important to talk about, because oftentimes business and love are separate, and it makes no sense. It makes no sense to me. Business is people. People are one.
Right.
And love is one, and love is all. And so if you're in a business and love is not a part of it, that literally makes no sense.
Well, you told us, or Laurel said early on, like we did Tory Project, who we love. It's this business boot camp focused on conscious capitalism, stakeholder capitalism tenets. And, after one of we did this, it was pretty, I don't know how much, it was a lot. It was like 64 hours in a month or something while we were working full time. Anyway, it was long. And we had these like 3-hour nights, and we were leaving after one of these 3-hour nights. And Laurel was like, I just really think we just need to say love. Like, our company is love. It's our values. I was like, no, Laurel, no, hard no. So I can't sit here like and be like, yes, love, because I was like, no. But it's not as much as saying no to love. I think it's more like the definition, because it is abstract and it is hard to define, and it means something different to everybody. And
100%.
so what does that mean? And so I think that's more what I was saying no to. So anyway, I just had to,
No, that's, I mean, that's such a thing too, is like, you've got like Greek has like 10 different words for love, right? And popular culture, TV and movies, right? Again, I think it pisses me off is like, again, I think there's like social responsibility, right, with everything that's like created and produced. And so if you're producing content that's, leading people astray and like, not healthy and good and all of that stuff is not good. And so of course you grow up watching, a lot of like popular television in America, dealing with a lot of the like worldly concepts, and, love is, what you're seeing on, I don't know. I can't even think of like the Kardashians or something like that, right? So, yeah. Well, there's some good ones, right? There's some good ones. But yeah, don't sleep on Barbie movies. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding. I know it's like super, super random. Those are my wife's like favorites. They're actually really well done. Absolutely, yeah, right. It's like we're like all sorts of fun, shocking content here today. But right, talking about, didn't think I would be talking about Barbie movies today, did I? That was a fun one. But no, they're actually incredible. Not even sleeping on it. But yeah,
have you seen the movie? Is it Soul?
I haven't.
Okay, well that might be your homework, Tom.
Yeah, definitely. And again, so yeah, what is love? I mean, it's like a constant, like me even in, continuing to like rediscover, recommit, and re-understand like what that means, and not be swayed by like all of this stuff out there. It's so easy to like, especially like when it comes to like role models in, in industry, you look at like Elon Musk and you're like, I do not want to be him ever. I don't care how much money he makes. I don't care if he gets everybody to Mars. Like, that sucks. I would hate to be him. Because again, it's yeah. So
he's an alien.
He's an alien, yeah.
And I have many opinions about Elon and his Morse code. But at the end of the day, like, I can't, like, love is patient, love is kind, and I can't judge. Like, I'm not
right. Exactly.
He's motivated and incentivized, and he has his own self-awareness and things that drive him. What is? Can you share a story about a moment in your life where you had a moment of self-awareness where you're like, oh, I thought I was behaving this way, I'm actually not, or I'm actually out of alignment? Because it is kind of easy to talk about these lovely love things. What's a story that you don't mind sharing about a moment where it went awry and you had to wake up?
I mean, literally it's so funny too, because this, even going back to like the business stuff, any decision that I've made or LaunchBoom's made that has been outside of our core values, anytime where it was like, oh, like swayed by greed, like, man, we should really work on this project, but it's like, shouldn't do it, this isn't going to go well, like all of that stuff. Like anytime we've fallen like prey to that, and in my own personal life, like making choices that, were not aligned with my core values and not aligned with my best self, again, you have that ripple effect. And it's funny because you see that both like in work and in all of these different areas. This is like when you're making a bad decision in one place, you're probably also making bad decisions in other places. And so in terms of like those areas and all of that stuff, I know like my wife and I, again, I'm not going to go into like too much detail here, but we struggled very much at the beginning of our relationship, and she like stood strong for me and was like a guiding light for me when I was weak and not making good decisions and making poor priorities and stuff like that, and help get me back on track. And so again, that stuff happens all the time, and that's why it's important to like look at who you surround yourself with, and who are you who is in your corner, right? And like, I love my wife, she's incredible, and I'm so happy I have her in my corner to help guide me with that. And same thing with like my business partners and things. Like, again, you've got different like coaches for different things, right? It's like, Jess, I'm in your corner for crowdfunding, I got you. But then you've got when it comes to certain things, I've got my wife. When it comes to business, my CEO, amazing friend, Mark Pakoda, has helped guide me. Same thing, partner Will, has helped guide me, get us back on track. And that's what we do for each other. And we're in each other's corners and help us, kind of get back on track when we're, again, we're human, we're going to make mistakes, but what matters is like how we kind of recover and grow from each of those experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just sitting with that. I'm thinking back, I'm like, oh man, like, yeah, but it's good. And I think, there's a saying, it's like, you're the sum of like the 5 people you interact with the most. And there's so much to be said to that, because they're influencing you, you're influencing them. And I'm trying to remember Laura has a much better memory than I do, but there was something I was reading recently, and it was talking about how it was kind of like the idea of like leveling up. Like, you always want to be kind of growing. And then I think about that in the context of like, well, what if I'm that person for someone else? Like, I want those people around me. I want someone where I'm always kind of inspired by and supported by. But then I think, well, does that mean that I can't be that person for someone else?
Mm-hmm.
If that makes, and not that I'm like this role model or leader or anything like that, but I just think, if I don't want to be in the sphere of influence, I don't want someone in my sphere of influence that isn't helping me grow. And then but at the same time, I'm like, well, I want to help other people grow too. And so I think it kind of comes back to values. I think, when we talk about this, it's like, they might not be that person today, but as long as that's something each of us are kind of aspiring to be, then I think that's where you can connect with other people.
Yeah. And again, like, everybody offers something, something different, right? Is like, and that's the thing too, is everybody has a gift, and like, being able to like identify what that gift is and then help like support them in, realizing it. There's actually, I'm going to pull up another quote here. This is from another book that I love.
I love the quotes. And I think too, like, especially when you're talking about this stuff, is that it's really important, because I think we have a tendency to put a lot of pressure on one person to be everything to us.
Yeah.
That's a business partner, something through work, a best friend, a wife, a boyfriend, whatever that is. It's like, no, this person's just supporting you in like this area of your life. And we all need like our tribe, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's so important, because it's like, well, what is the direction that everybody, again, going back to that values, is like, is everybody moving? That's kind of like the first step, is like, is everybody moving in the same direction? And I do believe in the concept of like, see one, do one, teach one, right? It's like, you see, you learn, right? You then you get the success, and then you can teach and support others. And that's what true mastery and true learning is all about, is like, you're actually not going to learn until you teach. Like, I have a lot of, like, even in my own mentorship of LaunchBoom Academy, for example, like, I've learned a ton from students like you, Jessa, and that's really solidified even my expertise and my mastery of crowdfunding. And I know the same is true for Mark in writing that book. Like, it took his even mastery of crowdfunding to another level when we gave it away, when we supported others, when we taught other people.
Exactly.
Well, I myself am a student of LaunchBoom Academy, if I have not mentioned, and I love it. And I find myself telling other people, I'm like, oh, this is what you should do. And then I feel like I have to put a big disclaimer. I have never done this before.
You'll get there. You're doing it. You're doing it though.
I feel like I'm learning so much, and then I feel empowered to share that knowledge, and it feels like I'm teaching, and then I have to step back and say, well, those who can't do teach, maybe. I don't know, but
no, that's no, because you're doing, or you've done a part of the process that you can now teach. And so the quote that I wanted to share with you guys is, good men only want the power to make things right. Great men seek to make things right and gather the power to do so. Great leaders find those who are worthy of wielding power and set them to the task of making things right. So
yeah,
Does that make sense? So again, I'll go through that again. So good men want only the power to make things right. So they want the power. They, have concept of right and wrong, right? Great men seek to make things right and gather the power to do so. They actually like take action and go for it. Great leaders find those who are worthy of wielding power and set them to the task of making things right. And there's, the 5 levels of leadership. There's like books and stuff like that, but like don't need like you read the book or you understand it's like the best leaders train leaders. And so it's about like, how do you as a leader, like build other leaders? And that's been a huge, I know within LaunchBoom, the thing that's helped us literally double our business this last year was that concept. Was like bringing on, and love Joe. He's amazing. He's an incredible leader, partnering with him to bring him in to, to lead LaunchBoom Academy and all of that stuff. And so
I think when I listen to that quote, Tom, it reminds me that these great leaders, great men, are building wealth and prosperity and success for themselves through infinite things. And that, to me, is what LaunchBoom is doing. The capacity of knowledge and to share that knowledge. And when knowledge is shared, it is shared in return and it is received. And you're all aggrandizing your value or compounding your value for each other. And so you are also expanding and expanding and expanding just by the sake of being with each other. Jessa, a student, Tom, a teacher, Tom also the student of Jessa, being a teacher as well. That is why ORION, in some ways, this podcast exists, to contribute the knowledge and resources to live a more conscious form of capitalism or a more aware way of doing things. And I wanted to highlight that point for me because I get really stuck in the words power, because I love power and I feel most empowered when I'm sharing knowledge, because it's not mine to keep. It's mine to give. It's in the giving that we receive. And that is where I think LaunchBoom sets apart. Forget the numbers, forget the reach, forget all that. That's where you set apart from other crowdfunding organizations, is the knowledge share, the expanding the capacity, and the investment in infinite things that compound infinite wealth.
100%.
As my dog barks.
Because I mean, like in a way too, you've heard like money is energy too, right? And it's like
it's a flow of energy.
Yeah, and it's like love. Like even back to the concept of love, it's like my wife has a song she sings that includes that. I'm not even going to attempt to try singing it, but basically the moral of that song.
Please try.
No, absolutely not.
Pardon.
No, hard pass, hard no. But the kind of the premise is he's like, you don't run out of love. Like you don't run out of that. Like it's not something that you have like a finite amount of. And that's the thing too, is like with the space and all this like concepts around zero sum markets and all of that, is like there isn't a finite amount. If somebody's making the same product that you are, that's okay. There is more than enough space. And I know like Jessa just got to witness, somebody in our community was like, somebody launched a product that's like similar to mine or solving a similar problem. Oh no, maybe now I shouldn't launch. What do I do? I don't even want to share my idea with people because I'm worried they're going to steal it or something like that.
Fear. Yeah. And it's understandable, but it's fear.
Exactly.
Well, and it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier about how some things may have, different drivers where you may have looked at something where I'll say greed for easy, like you went after the money. And because sometimes people are afraid to say no to business, they're afraid to say no to clients because it's been so ingrained in us that the customer's always right and you should always be closing ABC.
Yeah.
And so when you say no to something, it allows you to say yes to something else. And some of those yeses that you're second guessing or they're not values aligned, they cost so much more in energy than the money is worth. And
100%.
Especially early on in your career, like people just say yes to everything. And we encounter so many people who are afraid to tell that client to walk away, to cut these partnerships. And because it's so in their mind of like, well, I don't want to burn bridges, or there is a little bit of revenue there. And like, yeah, but what is that really costing you in terms of your energy? And how much time are you spending dreading opening that email or thinking about your response or, putting off this meeting? And it's just not worth it. And so, coming back to there's enough. It'll come back around. This isn't the last deal you're ever going to get or the last client that's ever going to say yes to you. Like, yeah. And if you already have those people, it's okay to end the relationship.
Exactly. And that's the thing too, is because like that's the thing is like so many, you see this in so many different areas where it's like, hey, the right client is out there for you, the right person is out there for you. You just got to prepare yourself for that client, for that person, all of that stuff, and focus on you. And because that's the thing is like, we talk about going back to that example of like the competitors, right? Like we're competing over like $100,000 campaign or something like that, but the actual market size of that category is like in the billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars. And so it's like, what are you even doing? You're like squabbling over like the smallest little crumb ever. And if you just stopped, squabbling over it, the phrase, losers look at like winners focus on winning, losers watch winners, is so important.
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts about many things that you've said. Like we, as stakeholder capitalists, and we just view business very differently than the traditional way of doing things where I must keep it to myself, therefore it is a competitive advantage. And we come from a place that like there is enough to go around. This is not a scarcity of resources. Our planet might be very sick and polluted, and we're ruining our natural
that may be scarce. Yeah,
that can be scarce for sure. Like clean resources and health, it can be scarce.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a way, like for this individual who was worried that they wouldn't be competitive or they wouldn't be good enough or the launch wasn't right or it's not the right time. Those are those fear-based limiting beliefs that it's totally understandable we get stuck there. Totally understandable. Enter Tom and LaunchBoom, who support you. Like you said, you're in there
going.
Just give it a go. There's no reason not to. It's
imperfect action.
It costs more, like Jessa said, for you not to do it, to not consciously act in alignment with what feels good. And it will feel good. It's scary. It's for sure scary. And fear is understandable. Just shift the mindset and go, this is enough. This is enough. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And you've got all of these resources, these infinite resources like Tom and LaunchBoom and Jessa and Lauren, all these infinite people that want you to do well. It's not 100%. The world against you.
No.
It's not the world against you. I just wanted to big applause for bringing that up, because you're in a world of selling products and marketing and telling these stories. And I feel good because it's coming from a genuine, authentic place of love. It's not from must make a bunch of, pardon my French, shit just for the sake of it and just to collect Scrooge McDuck coins and
yeah. And I think for me, like, I am very sensitive to, I don't know, like kind of BS, or I'm very, anytime there's like a business approach, I'm always on my heels. Like, okay, what do you want from me? And sometimes it's okay. Like, okay, sometimes I'm like, oh, this is what you want. This is what I want. This works. But I'm just always so hesitant. And so even my first time talking to LaunchBoom, which was probably almost a year ago at this point when I very first started it, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay. And then coming down to where I'm at now, I'm like, like Laurel said, so genuine. It's an awesome, awesome community of people, and everyone in there is so genuine and they're all willing to help. And it's kind of one of those things, like, you get what you give. If you help people, they're going to help you. And we're all coming from a good place. Well, I think we're coming from a good place. It feels good to help each other and to learn and be on this journey together. And so I just want to point that out. Like, you can tell when someone's being genuine, and you can tell when someone's following the script, and when they're just like going through the motions, just trying to meet their objectives, and they don't care about yours. And, kind of on this note, we're getting into like a full on LaunchBoom ad right now, commercial promo, which I love to do. It's like annoying. I annoy myself how much I talk about LaunchBoom. I do, I promise you. And it's, I'm just like embarrassed in conversations. I'm like, so this company LaunchBoom, but on that note, since we're already here and we're about at the end of our time, like, I know there's a million things LaunchBoom does besides what I touch. Like, what are some things, I guess, that you want to put out there that LaunchBoom does that I'm not selling well at this point?
Well, the one thing I want to do first is like thank you too, because like again, that is like the thing that makes me super happy, and the things that like brings joy to my heart is seeing the community support one another. Because like I am one person, Joe is one person. We've got like a lot of different things like a lot of things going on, and the more that we can help each other, again, solve problems together, the better this is going to be for everybody. And the like again, rising tide lifts all ships, and I think that's really cool. And like I was literally out last week, it was my wife's birthday, wanted to like really like completely turn things off, don't want to jump into the crowdfunded community and like be answering questions about crowdfunding 24/7, because I want to be present, like fully present with my wife for our little vacation. And so it was just amazing to see members of the community like you, Jessa, stepping up and like supporting other people. People are like sharing their landing pages and like getting feedback from the community, and I can go, okay, somebody's like, people are helping each other. This is amazing. I can be present now. And so that's just awesome. So big, huge thank you there. And then to the question of like, what are some things or like that I'd love to share with everybody? One is Crowdfunded Summit. I'm wearing the shirt. So this is happening April 6th, 7th, and 8th. It's awesome. I highly, highly recommend it. Crowdfundedsummit.com. I still think they might be working on a few things on the back end. So if it's a little wonky, I apologize. Pardon the dust. It definitely won't be by the end of this week, if not Monday. But
sorry, cut you off, even though I asked you this. I did the Crowd Summit last year, and it was amazing. First of all, the timing for me worked out. It could have worked out better because I had made the decision, which Laura can vouch for, where I'm like, you know what? Let's just do a crowdfunding. Let's just wing it and see how it goes. And then right around the same time, thank goodness, the crowdfunding summit was like, I think that week or the next week. And I was like, oh, okay, Jessa, slow your roll here. But it was, and it doesn't matter if you're crowdfunding or not. It's whatever you're doing, anything in business. If you have something that you are exchanging, like services or goods, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I mean, there is, I love
this year's
it.
This year's gonna be ridiculous. Okay. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be ridiculous.
Well, I attended the first one, and it was like, right, your inaugural one.
That was the first one ever.
And I was shocked. I was like, this is so amazing. There's so much gold here. Someday or maybe I'll screenshot some of my notes. My notes are, I mean, pages and pages and pages in a Slack channel, like to a point where the other people in the Slack channel are annoyed. They're like, I'm never going to be able to read all this. I'm like, you don't have to. I just need to know what's there because there's so much there that I'm going to reference. Okay. My plug is done. Anyway, I highly, highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah. So, and the thing specifically with that is become a VIP. So this year we're making it, so we're VIP, there's VIP's last one, which is awesome, where you get the recordings. This year we're taking that to a whole nother level. All of our VIPs are getting physical copies of Mark's book. They're, so which is amazing. That's it in and of itself. So they're getting that. We're actually going to do a third day. So you saw like day 1, day 2, day 3. So day 1 and day 2 are free. Day 3 is VIPs only. And we're literally going to go from like idea, where we're going to like come up with an idea. Like we're going to go through an idea and then go all the way through to like test boom. The whole process, like every single piece, it's going to be a workshop, worksheets. It's going to be awesome. So this whole third day, that's going to be epic. And just the amount of speakers, the people that we have here, we're bringing some of the top crowdfunding campaigns literally of all time in every industry. And it's going to be incredible. All the industry experts are going to be there. It is by far going to be the largest crowdfunding summit or crowdfunding conference ever. So that's number one. And then number two, I would say, is come join the crowdfunded community. So like, even if you're not sure if you're going to do crowdfunding, just hopping in there and getting inspired by all the cool stuff that everybody's doing. It's the facebook.com/group/crowdfunded community. Join that. Love to have you in there. Definitely like give us a follow on social and all the other fun stuff. And there's I would say like see our free training. And so like, if you're really lost or don't know where to go, it's launchboom.com/masterclass in order to like really learn the strategy that goes into everything that we're doing. So, but those are my calls to action here today.
Love it. Your 3-point landing was conscious and affirmative. Yeah.
Thank you.
You did great, kid. You're gonna make it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
You're on the right path. The journey is enjoyable.
Yes. Yeah, journey before destination. So yeah, here I'll show you. It's actually a crowdfunding campaign. Here we go.
Ooh.
So I need to. This was crowdfunded. I think they raised like $5 million.
Ooh,
And,
What is it?
pretty.
Here we go. Here's the.
So for our listeners, it's like a navy blue/black book with lots of decor, life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination.
It's a series of books called the Way of Kings. It's fiction. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Cool.
Look at that knowledge.
Check out Tom's
journey
finds,
stuff.
right?
Yeah, tomsfinds.com. There you go. That's one of my finds. Found
Thanks,
something.
Tom, for being here, for sharing, for being open, for telling us about abundance and solving problems together, thinking about solutions. It landed.
My pleasure. I'm glad. I know there was a lot going on.
Love it.
Thank you. And send it.